From KUNC and the NPR network, this is In the NOCO, a daily slice of Northern Colorado news and happenings. It's Wednesday, January 3rd. I'm Erin O'Toole. Many Americans are saddled with medical debt, and that is true for both insured and uninsured people. Half of respondents to a recent survey by the Commonwealth Fund said it was very or somewhat difficult to afford their healthcare costs. The survey's authors say this challenges the notion that simply having health insurance makes care affordable or accessible. And these findings help us understand why advocates in Colorado pushed for a recent law that removes medical debt from credit reports. Julia Char Gilbert is with the Colorado Center on Law and Policy. She worked on this pioneering law and joins me today, along with Denver resident Kayce Atencio. His medical debt had devastating impacts on his life and turned him into a vocal advocate. Kayce, I would like to start with you. You have unfortunately experienced firsthand the really crushing impact of medical debt. I wonder if we could just start with hearing your story.
Yeah. When I was 19 years old, my heart stopped beating, and I was diagnosed with a congenital heart condition, and I had to have a pacemaker placed. I had to have heart surgery. I was in the hospital for 3.5 weeks, just under a month, and I had both Medicaid and Kaiser at the time, but I was not at a Kaiser affiliate facility. And because I had Kaiser, Medicaid refused to pay. So neither of my insurances paid for my surgery or my hospital stay. So I was left with a hefty 50,000 plus dollar bill that neither would pay. And I couldn't afford a lawyer to kind of fight the insurance companies. So I just had this massive crushing debt laid on me at 19 years old.
That's, not only terrifying to go through that experience medically, but then to come out with this situation. And how did that affect your life? I imagine you were kind of starting to get out on your own in the world.
Yeah, I couldn't get a car. I couldn't get an apartment. My credit score shot down to like 300, like as low as it could possibly have been. So I couldn't do anything that required credit, which was everything. So I wound up having to live with my mother-in-law. I was making minimum wage at a Safeway. So there was no way to actually I was at Gasomat at that point. I was at a gas station. So there was no way to pay back this huge medical debt. I just had a baby. I had an 8-month-old at the time of when all this happened. So there's just no way to even attempt to try and pay it back. So I was just kind of stuck.
Hmm. Julia, I wonder if you could talk a little bit more about how medical debt impacts a person's credit score and these ripple effects.
Yeah, absolutely. So medical debt harms people in so many different ways and so profoundly. And one of those really key pieces that medical debt harms folks is through the credit reporting process, like Kayce described, and those sort of cascading impacts that flow from that. So as Kayce described, when you have medical bills that you're not able to pay, that information is shared with companies called credit bureaus, which are companies who basically wheel and deal in consumer information. They create credit reports for different entities like banks, like landlords to use when making really important informations about people's lives. So if you have medical debt, that information under the status quo shows up on your credit report and impacts your credit score. And that can make it really difficult to access credit, but also access housing, access a car loan, keep your monthly car payments low, even some jobs.
Right. Which kind of brings me to this law that you and your organization worked on. It really is pioneering. It made Colorado the first in the nation to prohibit medical debt from appearing on people's credit reports. Can you give us an overview of how the law works? Does it give Coloradans new rights?
The way that the law works is that if you are a Coloradan and you have medical debt, regardless of when you had that debt, regardless of where that debt was incurred, that information about your medical debt is no longer allowed to appear on your credit report. and therefore it can't impact your credit score anymore. The good news is that the way that the law works is it's fully the responsibility of the credit bureaus of the companies that create credit reports to make sure that that information's not on your credit report anymore. You shouldn't need to take action in order to feel the benefit of this law. That said, if you have an important life event coming up where you're anticipating a credit check, so that could be that you're about to apply for a loan or a mortgage, you're about to apply for a new apartment, for example, you can go ahead and take a look at a copy of your credit report at annualcreditreport.com and just make sure that that medical debt information isn't showing up on your credit report anymore. It shouldn't be under the new law, but if it is, if there was an error and that information still appearing inappropriately, then you have legal rights as an American to contact the credit bureau and get that cleaned up.
And we should note that this doesn't stop medical providers or debt collectors from pursuing patients with unpaid bills. So in other words, this doesn't erase the debt, but it sounds like it does stop some of those ripple effects, right?
That's right. The new law does not make the debt that is held by consumers go away, but it helps mitigate some of that really profound harm that comes through the credit reporting process. And it makes it easier for someone with medical debt to get back on their feet after a really important medical debt.
Okay. And Kayce, something that strikes me about your story is it really helps us understand this strong connection between medical debt, which is probably always unexpected, and housing insecurity, because it really affected you just as you were out searching for your first apartment. What do you want people to know about that, about this connection?
I think the connection is broad and obvious. I think there are thousands of Coloradans currently unhoused on the streets, and I think you'd be hard pressed to find a single one of them that isn't there in part due to their credit and medical debt and being disabled, and things that were outside of their control. And I don't think, I know it's like that. I don't think it's fair, but I really don't think it's fair for people's entire lives, their ability to just be, basic human rights, to be sheltered, to be warm, to have water, to be affected by something that they had no control over, because you can't control when you're going to have a heart attack, when you're going to have a stroke, when you're going to get an infection. But these things massively affect people's their entire lives and the trajectory of them. And it's really disheartening.
Well, Julia and Kayce, thank you both so much for joining me today to talk about this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It is a new year, and that means we're cooking up fresh new episodes for 2024. And we want to know what you think. What should we be looking into? Send a text or leave a voicemail at 970-614-5323. Please tell us your name and city, and we may use your comment or idea in a future episode. That's 970-614-5323, or email us at noco@kunc.org. That's it for us today here on In the NOCO. We'll be back tomorrow with more of what's happening in Northern Colorado. Robin Vincent is our executive producer. I'm your host, Erin O'Toole. We'll see you next time.